Madhava Jaya Jai Shri Radha Govinda Ki Jai. Jai Go Nande. All glories to the Son of Devotee. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Pranam Namaskrityam Ramcharam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Gautriyam. Hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 12, Creation of the Kumaras and Others, Text 5. Tan babhase svabhu putran praja srijata putraka tam naichan moksha dharmano vasudeva parayanaha tam babhase svabhu putran praja srijata putraka tam naichan moksha dharmano vasudeva parayanaha tam babhase svabhu putran praja srijata putraka tannai chan moksha dharmano vasudeva parayanaha. Then unto the Kumaras, as above mentioned, Babhashe addressed Svabhu Brahma Putran unto the sons, Prajaha generations, Srijata to create, Putrakaha, O my sons, Tat that, Na not, I Chan desired, Moksha Dharmanaha pledged to the principles of liberation. Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead. Parayanaha, who are so devoted. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace by Charana Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Brahma spoke to his sons after generating them. My dear sons, he said, now generate progeny. But due to their being attached to Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they aimed at liberation, and therefore they expressed their unwillingness. The four sons of Brahma, the Kumaras, declined to become family men, even on the request of their great father, Brahma. Those who are serious about gaining release from material bondage should not be entangled in the false relationship of family bondage. People may ask how the Kumaras could refuse the orders of Brahma, who was their father and above all the creator of the universe. The reply is that one who is Vasudeva Parayana, or seriously engaged in the devotional service of the personality of God, Vasudeva, need not care for any other obligation. It is enjoined in the Bhagavatam 11.5.41. Devarshi bhutaptanrinam pitrinam na kinkaro nayam rinicharajan sarvatmana ya sharanam sharanyam gato mukundam parihritya kartam. Anyone who has completely given up all worldly relationships and has taken absolute shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, who gives us salvation and who alone is fit to be taken shelter of, is no longer debtor or servant of anyone, including the demigods, forefathers, sages, other living entities, relatives, and members of human society. Thus, there was nothing wrong in the acts of the Kumaras when they refused their great father's request that they become family men. Brahma spoke to his sons after generating them. My dear sons, he said, now generate progeny. But due to their being attached to Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they aimed at liberation, and therefore they expressed their unwillingness. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this is a rare occasion that somebody refuses this type of order of the Guru, and therefore it is because it's very rare. One of the reasons it made it to Bhagavatam. Usually, what happens? Usually, the disciples goes to the Guru and he says, "Well, Guru Maharaj, I don't want to be superficial Brahmacharya. I know one Guru, one friend of mine. He went to his Guru and said, Guru Maharaj, I don't want to be superficial Brahmacharya anymore." And the Guru said, I don't care. Better be superficial Brahmacharya. But he gave him blessings at the end. So usually we have the opposite situation. The disciple goes, he asks for blessing to as this is the buzzword, changing ashram. Because changing ashram could mean that he takes sannyas, but usually all this means that he becomes vihasta. So, and in this case, we see that it's the other way around. And not only that, but the four Kumaras, they refuse. And here in the verse it is stated, due to their being attached to Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they aimed at liberation. So this was the reason they refused, because they were attached to Krishna. Not because they, Hare Krishna, didn't want to take responsibility, or they were lazy. These are not good reasons. Or they wanted to protect their, to keep intact their so-called reputation as brahmacharis. That's not a good reason. And based on this pastime, you can hear devotees sometimes they say that this is the only case, the only scenario possible when the disciple could actually refuse the order of Guru, and they quote this case. So this is the precedent, like in the court case. So this is a rare occasion to refuse the order, this type of order of the Guru, because, as we know, this is the greatest material enjoyment, and it is also the greatest entanglement at the same time. So they go together somehow. In 11th canto, Krishna tells Sudava that there is no greater bondage and no greater suffering than the bondage and suffering that arises from attachment to woman or people who are, or men who are attached to women. So this is the greatest type of entanglement. So but this male-female attraction is the basic principle of material existence, as we know from this famous verse from Bhagavatam. Pumsa striya maituni bhavametam tayor hirdaya grantimahu ato griha kshetra sutapta vitarjana se mohuyamaham mameti. It broadens the basically broadens the illusion. In the beginning, you are attached to yourself, and then as time goes on, then there are other objects. The field of activities becomes broader, material activities, and then you become attached to many other things. Wife, children, home, relatives, etc. And all this is based on this initial attraction. And we know also this another famous verse. Yan mai tunani griham edi sukam hitucham kandu inena karayoriva dukha dukkam. Tripyanti neha kripana bahu dukha bhaja kandu tivam manasicham bishaheta dira. In this verse, this attraction is based on, compared to rubbing your hands in order to relieve an itch. It's itching, so you try to relieve it, but somehow or other it doesn't bring satisfaction, doesn't bring happiness. And those people are always bahudukha bhaja. They are tripyanti neha. So they lack satisfaction, and they don't attain, they are full of anxieties. And what's the way to deal with this? Vishaheta dhira. One should just learn to tolerate. Of course, the best is if you have spiritual taste, like in this case. But due to their being attached to Vasudeva, then that's the best. But if you don't have the spiritual taste, then what do you do? Still, it's not a excuse to engage in sense gratification, to follow our animalistic nature. So then we just have to tolerate. The mind is the mind is such an entity that it's like a child. It can be very much engrossed in certain object, but then in due course of time, sooner than later, he will go to something else. So we just have to wait until the agitation goes to some other object. Of course, if it's again material object, it's also not good, but that's the principle. You just have to be patient and wait. And at the same time, try, of course, to develop spiritual taste, which will be the ultimate solution of this problem. So Srila Prabhupada, he was once in somewhere in Europe, in one, I think in Germany, in Hamburg. They have big harbor there. So he was there with his disciples, and he pointed to all these Ugra Karma machines there, and he asked them, so what is this? And devotees were giving different answers. And Prabhupada said, no, this is just sex life. Because all these arrangements are made because people want to enjoy sex. And also when some devotee was presenting to Srila Prabhupada different Western philosophies. So Freud was one of them. And we know Freud says that Freud basically quotes Bhagavatam unknowingly. He says that the basic principle, the underlying principle of the material world is sex attraction. And Prabhupada, when he heard it, he said, much to the amazement of the devotees, he said, yes, Freud is right. Of course, Prabhupada didn't agree with Freud's conclusion, but the karmis, they also, just like when the watch is broken, 2 times in the day, it's still correct. So sometimes they get it right. So Prabhupada agreed, yes, this is the main principle of material existence. And we see that not only in the material life, but in the spiritual world also. There is this verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Aradhikara Prema Guru Ami Shishyanat. Krishna says that the love of Srimati Radharani is my Guru, and I am the disciple, Shishya, and this love makes me dance in so many novel and different ways. So Krishna says, I'm a puppet. I'm completely dependent on this pure love. So this is the case in the spiritual world. And the perverted reflection here in the material world is called Mayamrigam Purusha Ishanyate, a dancing, not a puppet, no, a pet animal, like a dancing dog in the hands of women. Muchukunda Maharaj, he says that you are great king and you conquer all the directions, and kings which were once your equals, now they offer you obeisance because you became the emperor. So you enjoy the undisputed sovereignty, and then when you go back home, you become Mayamrigam Purusha Ishanyate, you become like a pet animal in the hands of your queens. This is one of the greatest kings. So what to speak about normal materialists? So this is all-pervading principle, and therefore it is called the Adi Rasa, the initial, the original relationship. Actually, the material universe could not function properly unless this is intact. Like in the beginning, when there was this story in Bhagavatam, Brahma noticed that the living entities are not sufficiently bewildered by Maya. So he was thinking what to do. So then he created a female form, and then everything fell into place quickly. And of course, the male form is the same for the women, for those who identify with male and female. So we know it is, so many different examples, and it is all pervading in all species everywhere in the universe, amongst the higher living entities, of course, amongst the demons. Prahlad Maharaj gives the definition of a demon. Demon is somebody who is very much attached to sense gratification. So this interesting definition. It's not what we would expect normally. So anyway, there's so many stories. There were two demons which were very powerful, and Brahma, nobody could defeat them. So Brahma decided to create the most, from all beautiful things in the universe, he took a little bit and he created Tilotama, this famous Apsara. And then when he engaged her to serve the demigods, and she was walking around, this is when Indra manifested so many eyes on his body, because he wanted to continue to look, because sometimes you have these people, they wear dark glasses so you don't see where they're looking. So the demigods were just cool, so he just manifests more eyes. And then Shiva, this was when Shiva manifested five heads, so he would just follow. So we see even the most pious living entities, they are influenced. Of course, this is the desire. This is anyway, it's a pastime in a sense. So we know the story of Mohini Murti also. This is why Mohini Murti went where she went. She went through all this, I don't know all, but some at least, the places where the sages were living, so that all the sages, they can see. Shiva, who is the best amongst all yogis, is running after this woman, so that they can be really careful in their practice. And then we know the story of Devahuti, when this Gandharva, he was flying on his how do you call this, Vimana, and then he saw Devahuti, she was playing on the roof of the palace of her father. And then when he saw her, he was so bewildered by her beauty that he fell down from the, he fell down. And this was mentioned by Kardama Muni when he spoke with Swayambhuva Manu. And we know the story of Rukmini when she appeared on the scene. All these princes, all these kshatriyas, they were so bewildered by her beauty that they started to, just falling down from their chariots, from their horses, from their elephants. So we shouldn't even for a moment think that just by our vows of Brahmacharya or sannyas or whatever, we are able to protect ourselves from Maya. Maya is 1/4 of the creation, and we are 1/10,000th of the tip of a hair. So there is no other way for us to be safe than by the mercy of Krishna. Mama Maya Durati, Mam Eva Maya Metam Tarantite. So if so exalted living entities, they are in the grip of Maya, what about us? So, and as we said, it is rare to reject this contract that Maya offers us. Maya always offers us the same contract every lifetime. It says birth, death, old age, and disease, but there will be sex pleasure. So what do you think? And we always, until now, we have been always signing up. Yes, I will sign up. Until there is sex pleasure, I will sign up. So it is rare to find somebody like the Kumaras who are declining this offer. And in the eyes of the materialists, this is very peculiar, very odd, strange. In Mahabharata, when during the Rajasuya sacrifice, Krishna was to be worshipped as the most exalted personality there present. Then, of course, there were some people who objected, the demons objected. Like Shishupala, all these guys, they hated Krishna. And then the Pandavas, they stood up and they defended Krishna, Nakula, I think, Nakula or Sahadeva. And then Bhishma Deva also spoke, and he said, Krishna is the greatest personality. He should be worshipped first. And then these demons, they said, well, who is this Bhishma anyway? He's Brahmacharya. And you got to be either, that means he's either impotent or he's crazy. So these are the two options they gave. If somebody is Brahmacharya or sannyasi, demons take only two reasons for this. There cannot be other reasons. So it's strange for materialists. Why would you decline this? This is available in your grip. So why would not take the opportunity? So there are two types of brahmacharis: Naishtiki, which means he will never get married, and Upakurvana, which means he will be brahmachari for a certain period and then he'll get married. So both of them, they get the same training. It's not that because one is Upakurvana brahmachari, his training is different and he learns how to match saris and cholis. So they get the same training, and they're both, if they got the same training and if they're serious about it, they are both first-class brahmacharis. So why then one of them gets married and the other one doesn't? The reason is because the Naishtiki brahmacharis, for somehow or other, they attained this realization, either from previous life or from this life, just by listening. They attain they have the realization that better to save these 25, 30 years and to use them for direct devotional service. They have this realization somehow. Sorry? And And the Upakurbana Brahmacharis, they lack this realization, and they have to go through the process of gaining this realization, which will be, in their case, they have to experience this, and then they'll get the realization. So compared to the eternity, Anadi, we are here in the material world since time immemorial, compared to this large period of time, 25, 30 years, it's not a long time. So if this is the price to pay to gain this realization, then it's not bad. It's relatively short period. But of course, if one can save this endeavor and headache and suffering, then better to save it, better to use the time for direct devotional service. Therefore, there are these different types actually of intelligence. One is you just hear and you understand and you realize. But if this is not working, then one has to go through experience. And but then, even then, a Upakurbana Brahmachari goes into the Grihastha life with knowledge, with understanding. He knows I am going there in order to get this realization, not because I want to enjoy, not because there is something to enjoy in the material world, but because I'm lacking this realization. I have to learn through practical experience, and then I'll be able to focus only on direct devotional service. And therefore, it is not a fall down. If somebody falls down from devotional service, this is fall down. But if he's moving progressively forward, then it's not a fall down. And from general, like from the perspective of Varnashrama, and even from spiritual perspective, because these are spiritual stages, the 4 ashrams. The Grihastha ashram is step up for a Brahmachari, for a Upakurbana Brahmachari, because he, as Brahmachari, he's taking care only for himself. And as a Grihastha, he has to learn how to care for other people. He becomes more responsible. Of course, for Naishtika Brahmachari, he already went through it. So in other words, in the Grihastha ashram, one sees that all the points that Bhagavatam makes are correct. There is not even one point that is missing or it's doubtful. And he sees this in his own life, directly experiences all these things. So in other words, he realizes my wife is not special. So everything that is in Bhagavatam is true, even in my case. So in the Brahmacharya ashram, one is supposed to acquire all the qualities that are going to make him a successful Grihastha. For example, to follow the authority. If you ask, somebody asked one time, Bhakti Prabhu Maharaj, so what is the main thing that the Brahmacharis learn in the Gurukul? And his answer was respect for authority, to follow authority, because this is the basis of spiritual advancement. So the Brahmachari learns how to respect authority. He learns to be always active, not to be lazy, to be clean. All these things are very conducive, very helpful in his future life. One can learn these things as Grihastha, but this will be difficult. And usually women, they take few years to train an untrained man, and if it doesn't work, it takes 2-3 years, and then there is a divorce. That's it. They won't spend more time because they're practical. If you cannot, so if you're not trained properly, then they'll try to train you, and if you're just not trainable, they'll move forward. So this will create a havoc in the social structure of society, and it is creating already. It's Kali Yuga. So therefore, it's so important brahmacharis to be trained properly. And then when they are properly trained, they'll be successful grihastas, and then they'll be able to become vanaprasthas at one point, because they will keep these fond memories of their brahmachari life. They will know, actually, I was very happy as brahmachari. I had to go through this grihasta life because I needed this realization, but this was very happy life. So they will, when they become 50, they'll be looking like they will be looking forward. Okay, when will I be able again to just devote myself to devotional service, direct devotional service? It won't be as it is often the notion, the very mentioning of vanaprastha life with ashram and taking vanaprastha won't be taken as some kind of threatening situation, something painful. I mean, yeah, of course, there will be some. It's just always, people become attached. That's natural. But anyway, if one goes through the brahmachari training, then it will be easier for him to take vanaprastha. Otherwise, if one hasn't been trained as brahmachari, vanaprastha will be, it's kind of impossible because he doesn't know what is it. What does it mean to just to dedicate himself to devotional service exclusively and to depend on Krishna? It will be very difficult. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada established these ashrams, and if we think about it, Srila Prabhupada established 5 of the 8 elements of Varnashrama. He already established from the very beginning. The 4 ashrams and the Brahminical Varna, they already established. So this is the reason. It's because it is conducive for advancement in devotional service. All right, so what else? Do you have some questions or comments? Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So how we can safety practice in Brahmacharya and some practical advices to be safe in the ashram, nicely following.
Ramana Prabhu would like to say something. Can you repeat the question?
So how we can how we can safety practice Brahmacharya, nicely following and stay safe in the ashram, make progress in that.
Tips for proper brahmachari training. You can say something.
What is it? Sad Goswami asked them for. They kicked off all association of aristocracy as insignificant. In other words, the properly pronounced order of life. For what reason? To benefit the fallen conditioned souls. And Prabhupada writes in one purport, one cannot be a leader or in any post of authority unless one broadens the scope. So the purpose of the renounced order of life is that you can serve the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by distributing qualitatively and quantitatively as much mercy since you're a conduit for that, then you'll always be safe. As soon as you stop What is it, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta? As soon as I start thinking of my bodily comforts, to that proportion, service to the Lord wanes.
Sadhaka need to focus on various aspects of his life when he is in Brahmacharya ashram. Prabhu just touched one aspect. As you said, how to be safely engaged in Brahmacharya ashram so that we can be successful. One thing is, Prabhupada has given us a very defined program to follow. Morning time, we go for Mangalarti, we chant, then we attend Guru Puja, deity greeting, after that Bhagavatam class. A brahmachari is very focused, means he understands the purpose behind all these practices. Why am I chanting? Why am I asked to attend Mangalarti? He needs to find some quotes from Shastra, and at least once he should remind himself, like before chanting, you may have some favorite quote from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, from Prabhupada, from our previous acharyas. You like that quote, which is supporting you cultivating mood as a brahmachari. Remember that quote before chanting. Okay. Another thing is, many times our devotees, they are very much accustomed to stay in a comfort zone. We are not ready to take the challenges. You just imagine how much challenge Prabhupada had to take when he wanted to establish this organization. So we join in the temple. We have a very comfortable stay, prasadam. We don't have to struggle for anything. Prabhupada didn't know where he's going to stay, who is going to provide accommodation, where he's going to cook his meal. Nothing was certain for him. Just imagine, every step there is a challenge. So if you are taking challenge for Krishna, anyway, we have to take challenge. Either you take challenge for Krishna, or you have to take challenge for maintaining your material status. So an intelligent person, he takes a decision on his own, better to take the challenge in Krishna's service. Because anyway, that is going to give me more shelter and protection. When Krishna sees Brahmachari essentially taking the challenge to spread the mission, that is how he gets the empowerment. And from time to time, he has to cross-check on himself. What I have been doing, where I have gone wrong in my approach to do all these things. Then comes to association. While we are participating in the program, we are engaged in preaching, distributing books, we need to be in a very correct association, because association matters a lot in Krishna consciousness. Being a brahmachari, if I always try to associate with materialists, or I associate with so-called grihasthas, I would say, who finds a lot of interest in discussing other subject matter, not necessarily Krishna consciousness. If I keep company with such kind of people, then I'll attend the infection from them. So Association is also very, very important, factor we need to take a note on. So in that way, if, a brahmachari, he is very much focused on the various aspects of his sadhana practice, being goal-oriented. He is engaged in some preaching activity where he is willing to take the risk for Krishna. He is always choosing the correct association, and on regular basis, he should be offering his heartfelt prayer to the deity. Prayers are three kinds, right? Samprarthanatmika, Dainyabodhika, Lalasamaya. He needs to understand that at least I'm in the platform of Samprarthana or Dainyabodhika. Prarthana he should choose, and he should offer to the deity on regular basis. Like you see, we have seen in Prabhupada's personal life. One day Prabhupada was sincerely praying to the deity. And devotees were surprised what Prabhupada is talking to the deities. When they inquire, Prabhupada says, I was praying for their protection so that I don't fall down. You just imagine how important it is to pray to the deity for their protection and shelter on a regular basis. We want to become a successful brahmachari. Means it's not a goal that we want to become a successful brahmachari. We want to become a successful servant. Brahmachari is an ashram supporting particular aspect of Krishna consciousness in that particular age limit up to 25. Then after that, you have to go on to the next. What? That means you are trying to gain some taste. So in our prayer, if we are intending to gain the shelter and taste, ultimately Guru and Krishna's mercy will give us protection. So these are the various aspects Brahmachari need to see when he is in that particular ashram and thinking how I can become a better devotee.
Thank you. Thank you, Ramara Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. So there's a question online from someone named, I guess, a devotee named Radha Sham. The question is, Prabhuji, I have 2 kids. How can I train them to have nice ashram? So it may be that you want to train them to become brahmacharis, or also the question may be, how can I train them so my grihastha ashram can be nice? So.
I don't know what's the particular situation of this Prabhu. This is what Prabhupada had in mind, is that we have to have gurukulas and the boys should go to gurukula. If this is not available, then as much as possible, these boys, they should have opportunity to associate with devotees and learn Krishna consciousness from them. Spend as much as possible time with the community, programs, and something practical that I know devotees are doing sometimes. They, when the boys are a little bit grown up, they, I know cases like this. They may join the brahmacharis for the weekend, or sometimes even go on traveling sankirtan with them, and in this way get some training. So let's say for the summer, when they have a vacation, they can spend a few weeks or a month with the devotees and learn some practical aspects of bhakti, and also gain some knowledge. So, of course, you cannot expect that this will have the same result as if we have a regular gurukul training. If you make a business and you put 1 month a year in this business as time and endeavor. You cannot expect that you'll make lots of money. The same with education. If you put there lots of, enough endeavor and time, you'll have one result. If not, you'll have different result. But anyway, it's better than nothing. So just has to see the practical situation and try to get the best out of it. But the main principle is to have as much as possible association with devotees. And if there is something like Sunday school in your community, at least that much, once a week to gather the kids and give them some training, something better than nothing. Is this? That's what somebody can add something about this. Okay, all right.
My question is, if some brahmachari is not focusing on his sadhana, but he's a performer, you tell him again and again and again, and he doesn't listen because of his independent nature. What should we do? Brahmachari is a performer, but he is not focusing so much on his sadhana. So we tell again and again and again, but still there are excuses, n number of excuses. I'm this, I'm that, my health is not good, like that. But he's a performer, so what should we do?
It's hard to say. Difficult to answer this question. Maybe Padmanabha Prabhu, Ramara Prabhu can.
Good at taking responsibility.
Huh?
Good at taking responsibility. Doing work in the temple.
He's good at, okay, okay. He's good at doing activity, but not doing good at sadhana. Prabhupada would make a statement that has made it that if you don't chant your rounds, there's not proper sadhana, then your activity becomes karmic. That's not a good sign to stay in spiritual energy. When you say, what should you do to counsel such a person? I think that I would say don't get your hopes up too high for such a person. Maybe he has to.
Engage that person according to his capacity. If he cannot take the service or he cannot do like more, then just let him do whatever he can.
One thing comes in mind, Prabhu, is I heard that Prabhupada also says this. Behind every successful man, there is a strong woman. So if somebody is not inspired, like in this case, it seems this person is inspired in certain area, but in other areas he's not inspired, definitely. So if somebody is not inspired by the spiritual energy, then he needs somebody to inspire him. And he needs a wife to get inspired. This might be the case. So sometimes the guru, he tells the Brahmacharya, you should get married because you don't follow sadhana, you are lazy, you don't perform your duty basically. So if you cannot be inspired on your own, somebody has to inspire you, and then she will know how to inspire him because it's well known how they do this. So he'll be more active. From Tamoguna, he'll get to the Rajaguna at least. So maybe this is not your case. I don't know the situation, but this is something that comes to mind.
Yeah,
There are different ways to help the devotee. As you said, in certain cases it helps. What exactly the principle here? The principle is this person needs help. That help may be coming from his intimate, friend or whatever you say as a kind of, wife, or that help can be given to him by another brahmachari or a senior devotee, or even he can be his guru also. Depends who he is very closely connected with. I mean to say, this person is eager to listen to somebody. That we need to identify. And then we have to teach him, we have to train him the plus and minus side of what he is doing. That is what we need to identify first. Otherwise, we can't help him. Because whatever you may say, he is a performer, but he doesn't listen. No, he listens to somebody. You cannot say he doesn't listen. He listens to definitely somebody. That somebody we need to identify and keep feeding him from time to time. Like he said, why Guru sometimes asks the Brahmachari to get married? Because he knows, he maybe, his wife he will listen to, and both of them may, grow. Sometimes it becomes successful also in certain cases. We have seen that. So the principle is we have to identify who is that person he might listen to.
Perhaps one of the purports in the Bhagavatam that Srila Prabhupada meditated on very, very deeply was in relationship to the departure from the sannyas ashram of his very dear and beloved disciple Madhudvis, who did so much pioneering Krishna consciousness for Prabhupada all over the world, especially Australia. So Prabhupada was very concerned, and he wrote in a purport that if one finds himself weak in a particular ashram, then one should go to the ashram where association with the opposite sex is allowed and continue to fight against Maya, the crocodile attacking Gajendra's, like the crocodile of Maya attacking, where one will get, in the Grahasta ashram, you'll get strength and encouragement and enthusiasm to continue the fight against Maya, but one should not give up the fight and go away. So just a year earlier, on the morning walk in 1975 in Mayapur, Vishnu John asked, what is the position? I forget exactly how it came out, but that Junior Haridas, he ultimately committed suicide because he had looked lustfully at a young woman. And Prabhupada said, yes, this is the proper atonement. And then Vishnu John took it very, very seriously. And the inevitable happened. And Revanti Nandan, who was Vishnu John's cousin, they grew up together as little boys playing in the yard, said that then Prabhupada went on in that talk that Vishnu John had excused himself, had left, that is an exemplary punishment and is not to be, So we say how Prabhupada handled Madhudvis, and then Madhudvis, he came and visited Prabhupada in his last days in Vrindavan, and Prabhupada was overjoyed to see him and just started immediately talking about how is your wife and child, and said, well, we have a son. And he said, all right, Srila Prabhupada, we named him Abhay Charan. So Prabhupada, he saw more the devotional service and the sincere desire to please him in a loving relationship of guru disciple, dedication to the mission. And he saw the varnashram status of the disciples as supportive for that mission, but not the sole criteria of one's worth.
Yeah.
Big topic, and many things could be said from different angles of vision and nuance.
Thank you, Raj.
Something else? Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Nitai Gaur Pramanandi. Jai. Oh, glory to the Sami devotees. Hare Krishna. This was monstrous.